is record this webinar, which I will do right now. And the recording will be available for others to listen to via the Stripe website, stripe.afrihealth.org, and anybody can link to that at a later point. So without further ado, let me highlight for you the outline for today's webinar. I'd like to start with just a brief review of some of the progress that folks are making to implement Stripe across different settings. I think it's really exciting, and I hope, like me, you'll feel energized by the updates from colleagues that are already implementing this program. And so we'll give a few moments over to that, and then Prof. Mariki de Villiers, the president of AfriHealth, is very kindly agreed to join us today, and we'll be giving you all a summary of the vision for the Stripe ambassadors. So if your institution needs assistance implementing Stripe, how do you go about availing of that assistance? And what are the mechanisms to connect to experts that can support you and your training institutions to implement Stripe? So Mariki will give us a summary of the role of the ambassadors, and then I'm going to end by giving you a very quick update on since the last time Judy presented this. We've made a few changes to summarize those for all of you. So that's the outline. Without further ado, let me jump in. And look, I think you all can applaud yourselves on making tremendous progress towards the goals of Stripe. Many of your institutions are beginning the training of trainers, or even some are beginning to train your students, postgraduates, early career professionals. And I think I wanted to give the opportunity for those of you that have had some of your training sessions to say a few words. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if there are folks from any of these schools, then I certainly welcome you to jump in. So, one of the schools to highlight that is doing some great work implementing Stripe is Zimbabwe and the CHIP program. I don't see Clara on the call, but these are photos that Walter and Clara shared, showing the work that they are doing, implementing the training in their setting. So kudos to the Zimbabwe team, to the CHIP team here for their progress to date. Let me just give a moment to see if Clara is on the call and able to say anything. Doesn't look like she is, but we'll come back to her if she is. I was very fortunate last week to join Mosa Moshabela and Nisha Nadison Reddy and Fatima Suleiman, who are running the Switch program in Durban, which is their version of Stripe. Hugely exciting endeavor. I think they had over 70 trainees who joined the training last Friday and Saturday in Durban. There's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm from the learners, many of whom had never done any kind of interprofessional training like this. And also, interestingly, from many of the facilitators who'd never taught in an interprofessional context. There's a lot of enthusiasm for Stripe. The tagline for the UKZN program was flattening hierarchies, a vision to sort of do away with a lot of the institutional infrastructure and hierarchies that sometimes impede the delivery of health services and often can be overwhelming for the learner. So it was a great experience for me and a real privilege to be able to see what they're doing. And again, let me just make sure there's nobody from Durban on the call. Doesn't look like there is, but otherwise I would have them jump in and say a word or two about what they're up to. But definitely a lot to be encouraged by the progress that's being made in Durban. And another school that is sort of making tremendous strides in terms of scaling up the STRIPE program is the Macarero program and their EIP HIV efforts. And I don't want to put Fred on the spot, but I'm curious, Fred, whether you'd be willing just to give us a 20-second summary of the work that you've done and how it's gone for you. So if you're able to, then jump in. But again, I don't want to impose upon you, Fred.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for the opportunity to speak on this call. I think I'll just talk to the pictures above. I think one is mostly this picture for the postgraduate trainees we just had recently. But in general, we have had TOT in two universities, one at Makerere and another collaborating institution. And at Makerere, the pictures you see there were for the postgraduate learners from the departments of nursing, pediatrics, internal medicine, and obstetrics and gynecology, where we had a total of 64 participants doing their first phase of the training, and we'll do another one in November. And we have a lot of other scheduled training with our partner institutions.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fred. We look forward to hearing a little bit more about your progress in the upcoming months, but thank you for jumping in there. I'm going to segue now to have Marieke de Villiers talk to us about the ambassadors. She was actually in Uppington with the Stellenbosch program, so can also speak to the work that Stellenbosch has been doing with their partners in Uppington. But let me hand over to you, Marieke, now, and you can tell us also about the STRIPE ambassadors. I'm conscious of the fact that you have a time crunch and wanted to make sure you had as much time as possible to speak. Over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the technical assistance that AfriHealth will be leading from now on. Mike, I see Hoffie is on the call. He can give you some feedback about the Sunstrike project, our workshop. So, okay, you can move to the next slide. So we are identifying people that we call ambassadors, STRIPE ambassadors, who can provide technical assistance to implementing partners. And this will also help you to see maybe what technical assistance you may need, or if there are people who are interested to be ambassadors, what expertise we would expect from you. So the first is then to train faculty to deliver the STRIPE workshop. These are more higher order training skills. So in order how to do workshops, how to do presentations, how to facilitate small group skills. So it's not so much the technical skills as the educational and training skills. So we also think that investors may be able to identify together with schools their technical assistance needs. We haven't had many requests, which is good, but because we have limited funding for that, but we are sure there are maybe technical needs that we are not aware of yet that can come out. So then the third bullet is to help and revise and review the STRIPE curricular content according to the local context. So this is more technical. We suspect that most of you would be doing that yourselves because you are the experts in your own context. But if there are schools that's slightly at loss, maybe to speak to another school that's already revised. So oversight of training the trainers and learners. So this is also kind of a higher order educational skill where we don't expect the ambassador actually to train the trainers, but to assist the people who are doing the training and how to do the training. Then maybe later on in the project, to assist with monitoring and evaluation across sites, pre and post test supervised focus groups and key informant interviews. I guess we will have a webinar or two also about it in general before we get to that stage, Mike. From there we can then also assess what needs people would have. So that's a bit later. And then specifically the bullet in terms of supporting school to implement the interprofessional elements. So there may be people that have expertise in actually teaching interdisciplinary or interprofessional groups. There's not many of us, most of us have been confined to our groups. But if you need a particular assistance with that, what we found in our workshop last week, the Stellenbosch workshop, is that putting the people in interprofessional groups is that if you can facilitate the small group to get the voices out which are more silent, the groups actually work beautifully. And then ad hoc mentorship for institution-specific PISP program directors, maybe for schools who haven't had projects like this before, who are new into the PEPFAR market, if I can call it like that. Okay, so Mike, the next slide. So how to request technical assistance and support. We have AfriHealth as a senior program manager with the name of Iranius Dasoberi. If you can't pronounce his name, you can call him Ray. And that is his email. So now Mike, you've got the older version. His email is idasoberi@afrihealth.org. Maybe you can change it can you change it on the screen or not?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
Let's see if I can.
Yeah, full name just idasoberi. We'll send it out again. Okay, and then, sorry, because Jess said she made the changes and then I didn't do it again. So, and then, right, there we go. AfriHealth, right. And copy stripe_HIV@UCSF. So what we would like you to do is to say that you require this type of technical assistance, if you look at the list that we have, or maybe some others that you identify, and tell us where you want to have it and the dates. Now it is quite a logistical challenge to get somebody to another place within a week or two. So we are respectfully requesting about 4 to 6 weeks. I know it's maybe a long lead time. What we are planning to do is to have ambassadors in the same country or neighboring countries so that there's not a big visa issue or a big traveling issue, maybe just national flights. So then the lead time could be much shorter. So if your lead time is short, write in any case, and we see what we can do. And then, of course, we will look at this and it's subject to availability of budget and expertise. But okay, Mike, the next one. Next slide.
I'm having a little glitch here at my end. Apologies.
Okay, no worries. So I just talk. So those slides were about the technical assistance. So that gives you guidance on what are the type of things you can request and how to request it. If you're not sure, write to Iranius and pose your questions, we will deal with it. And if there are other things you need assistance, please put it up. Don't hesitate. Don't feel worried about that. I see Mike's cursor is going around.
Yeah. There we go. Apologies.
Okay. So now these people called ambassadors are the experienced ones that we would like to help other schools. So the requirements is healthcare professional with, okay, back one more. No, you're going, okay, you must come back. There we go.
Sorry, there we go.
So it's quite senior people who have quite a lot of experience in health professions, education and training. Secondly, to have theoretical and clinical experience in HIV. You don't have to have all these qualities because this is a super person. But these are at least we need an experienced person with some of these experience. So the experience teaching IPE and or QI modalities. So those the technical experience of HIV, IP, and QI. And then the fourth bullet is now more the health professions education expertise, that you have conducted workshops your whole life and your experience, small group learning. Then the next bullet, but understanding of and experience in working in the African context, but I all have that. If you've had some international experience in Africa, that would be a plus. You should be willing and able to travel in country and neighboring country, and we would request that you be an AfriHealth individual member. If you're not yet a member, then I would all of you to go to the website, become a member. You just fill it, send it in. You're an AfriHealth member. Okay, then Mike, now the next one. Oh, you see, there's Iranius. We forgot to. So how to apply? Please send an abbreviated copy of your CV, not the full thing. We can't go through 50 pages. Just the 2-3 pages of your CV, specifically focused on the requirements. And just give us a motivation why you are well suited and why you would like to help other schools, that we just get a feel for that. A confirmation that you've joined as a member. And we want to ask you if we can have that by 31st of October, so that we can look at the whole pool and see, you know, if we cover countries and regions. Then the next slide. So we have a small committee that will look at the CVs, the motivation, and then we will match it with the TA requests. So the note I made there are currently limited TA requests. So we will probably get all the ambassador requests, put them on a spreadsheet, and link them up with a TA request. But it may mean that there's no TA request in your area or in your region, and it's not because you may be a very good ambassador, but there's maybe no need. So that is how we will link it up. We will communicate with you that we have received and your application. When we will look at it, then the ambassadors will get contracts from AfriHealth, which I don't have on the slide, but only if you are actually deployed to do TA. So we may say I have a list of 20 ambassadors and we've got 5 TAs. So we won't give you a contract before we have work for you, if you get what I mean. But we would really like to open it up to people who are interested and willing to assist other schools. It's also a way of developing and driving ourselves to self partnerships and learn from each other. I think that is the last slide, apart from the thank you slide.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So Mariki, let me just offer up for anybody for questions. Does anybody have a question for Mariki or Iranius? And by all means, add those to the chat box if you do, and I'll give you a pause to ask your questions. And while people are composing those questions, Mariki, let me just say thank you for your leadership as president of AfriHealth and as partner in this project. We couldn't have done this without your sort of willingness to support this endeavor. So thank you for your efforts and leadership.
Oh, thanks, Mike. It's only a pleasure. It's lovely to meet all the people. Lovely to see the energy around the project.
Okay, well, it doesn't look like there are any questions forthcoming right now. So thanks, Mariki. If you do have questions, then by all means shoot Irenaeus an email, the correct email, and I'm sincerely sorry for my my technical failings there, but the correct email for Irenaeus is in the chat box. It's idasaberi@afrihealth.org, and you can email him if you have any questions. You know, you can also email us at stripehiv@utsf.org, but Irenaeus is your go-to person for questions around ambassadors. So thanks, Irenaeus, for stepping into that role. And Mariki, I know that you have a busy schedule. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So without further ado, let me move on to the next item on the agenda and pause for a moment to speak about this. We wanted to give you an update on Module 11. So when we first conceived of this module, the idea was to highlight a particular population of people that are often in the shadows and marginalized by HIV care in sub-Saharan Africa, and that's men who have sex with men, who sometimes feel alienated, estranged by the healthcare system, and we hope that this module would provide trainees with some enhanced interpersonal communication skills for reaching Apologies, I think my audio dropped off there. I'm having some technical issues here in San Francisco, but hopefully you can hear me now. Our hope was that this module would provide trainees an opportunity to learn about how to engage with key populations, and then also offering pre-exposure prophylaxis. So if you recall, this was a case that Judy presented to the group a few weeks ago of Joseph, who presents to the clinic with an anal discharge, and he's anxious about engaging with the healthcare system. And the goal of the module was to prepare learners to provide and promote equitable HIV services in a multidisciplinary, interprofessional manner, requiring communication skills to increase comfort in taking a sexual history. So the update on this module is that we've now incorporated a couple of videos for you to use, and these are accessible through the Stripe website. So those of you that have access as a PI or program director should be able to access these training resources. And the idea here is to really present two different scenarios where a history is badly taken, and then an alternative where the history, while not perfect, is better in some ways. And we hope that it provides an opportunity for a group of interprofessional learners to sit around and discuss how could that have been done differently. So I want to share the first video with you to get an idea of what this is, what I'm trying to explain, so that then you'll understand it as you train your trainers to use this, and then as you use it in your training. So without further ado, I'm going to start the video, and hopefully you should be able to hear it.
Hey, hi. How is it? What brings you in today?
I'm having some problems going to the bathroom.
Anything else?
Yes, it's painful.
What have you eaten in the past 2 or 3 days?
Just the usual food that I'm used to. I don't think it's something I eat. Can this have something to do with the person I had sex with the other week?
What do you mean? Do you have discharge from a penis?
No.
Okay. Does your girlfriend have any problems?
No. I had sex with a man.
Wow. You have sex with a man. That's the problem. Why do you have sex with men? So what do you want?
What to do?
What do you want me to do then?
You're the doctor. You should tell me what to do.
Well, I think we should do a rectal swab and test for chlamydia and gonorrhea. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so look, the idea here is not to illustrate a well-taken history, but to have the learners review this particular scenario and then highlight ways that the doctor could have engaged the patient better to understand the patient's ideas, concerns, and expectations, and do that in a way that, you know, reduce the stigma and alienation that he might feel. And then as part of the module, then we anticipate pivoting to a second video clip, very similar, where the history is taken slightly better. And I'm not going to, spend the whole time on this clip because it's a fair bit longer. But I just want to illustrate that maybe the history can be taken in a slightly better way. So let me share it with you, and then we'll move on.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Bailo, and yeah, I'll be your clinician today.
Okay.
So, what brings you in today?
I'm having some problems going to the bathroom.
Is it diarrhea or constipation?
Diarrhea.
How many times did you go a day?
I've been going like 5 times a day.
How long did it start?
A few days ago.
Like 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, like 3 days or so.
Is the stools, are they bloody?
No, not bloody.
Do you have abdominal pains?
No.
Is it painful?
Yes.
Okay, well, now I have some personal questions that I want to ask you. They're related to your sexual health. And like I ask all patients that come to this clinic, those personal questions. And like, is that okay?
Sure.
And I want to assure you that anything we talk here is going to be confidential. I'm not going to say tell anyone. And like, it's going to be between you and me, except if you give consent for me to share with the other person. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So the doctor and the patient proceed in this second scenario, and the doctor does a somewhat better job of soliciting a sexual history from a man who has sex with men in a way that is not judgmental, and affords the doctor an opportunity to offer services that maybe he wouldn't have been able to in the first scenario, because his perspective to the patient was so constrained by his poor interpersonal skills. And the idea of this module, as I said before, is really to highlight some better ways of doing interprofessional communication. And we hope that this will be a fun opportunity for learners to engage around this topic. In each scenario, the learner's guide asks to sort of check off some boxes. Were certain things done, in each scenario, and then an opportunity for reflection. What did the provider do well? What could have been done better? And what can you learn in terms of strategies that Margot Pumer. That can enable better care for patients like this. So that's those are the two videos that are new, and then the idea thereafter is to pivot into an opportunity for the trainees to role play themselves, taking a sexual history. And we use this guidance that the CDC, the American CDC, have developed for helping to take a sexual history in terms of addressing how many partners, what kind of sexual practices, what protection from STIs like condoms, etc. Individuals are using, past history of STIs, and as relevant strategies to prevent pregnancy. I think Judy covered this when she summarized this module last time around. I guess, you know, using a video in this format is something we haven't done with other modules, and we're curious to kind of get your sense for whether this works. You know, is it something you want to see more of? And if so, we can certainly try and make that happen. As I say, these 2 videos are now going to be on the website, so you can use them with your trainees. And actually, I don't have too much else to say here. This was a somewhat shorter webinar today. I think that the one thing I want to end with is a request that as you start to train your trainees, and as you start to train your trainers, we want to get your feedback. How can we improve these modules so that they are more effective at engendering effective team-based HIV care, so that they equip trainees with the skills of quality improvement and effective interprofessional collaborative practice? So as you start to take these to scale, we'll be reaching out to you to kind of solicit your feedback on how and where things can be improved. We want to hear about even your minor tweaks as well as major changes that you would make. And we recognize that you're going to have to edit and modify all of these modules to your different settings. So by all means, go ahead and do that. But specifically, we're interested in hearing about modification and edits that are relevant to a wider audience across AfriHealth. So let us know where you think there can be improvements made that would improve the learning experience for all learners. Either at stripehiv@ucsf.edu or email me directly. I'm going to close out here. The next webinar is in 2 weeks' time. It's a slightly later hour because the clocks change here in the US on November 3rd. So it'll be 4:30 p.m. Central African time, still 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. And as we move into this next series of bi-weekly webinars, we're really interested to hear from your experience. So we've asked Dr. Fred Sematala and a couple of other colleagues to give us their first experiences of Stripe, what's working, what isn't working, just so that the rest of us can learn from those early adopters, those folks that are you know, out in front implementing Stripe already. So that's the next webinar. Again, if you have any questions about the ambassadors, then please email Iranius at idasaberi@afrihealth.org, and you can always contact us at stripehiv@ucsf.edu if you have any other questions. Thank you all for joining today. It's been a pleasure to have you on. A couple of glitches at my end. I think I was struggling with some of the technology today. Apologies for that, but thank you all for joining, and I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, guys.